One of the things I think people do is the first thing you want to do is add an agent, right? They want to add an agent because they think that's going to be that's going to be revenue positive for them. But
Yeah.
a good agent is not going to stay with us unless we provide support and we provide something to them. It has to be a win-win. I feel like collectively, real estate agents in general, we were on the forefront of this urge for people to move and change, and they
Yeah.
like needed us. And they were not, people in general were not in a good emotional place. And some people will say they're still not, everything's so crazy, but that that we took that on. And I remember that time being very, very hard on agents in general. But to your point, I agree. We were also running with our hair on fire, trying to service all these people that needed us
Yeah.
emotionally and in every other way. And it was tough. It was a tough
W
time. Sometimes there's a gap between kind of what you want and what they think the job is, and how do you kind of bridge that gap before you start working seamlessly together? It takes time.
If you've been thinking about growing, scaling, reshaping your team, this is an episode that you must absolutely listen to. Bianca Colasuonno shares not only the structure of her team, but how she thought about approaching it, why she approached it that way, and more importantly, her philosophy behind nurturing her agents and support staff, which is incredibly important. And all of that ultimately feeds a fantastic client experience. So stay tuned. There's a lot of nuggets she's going to share that just really make you think, that make you step back and just evaluate, think about your business on a much different level. Episodes like this have been brought to you by Andy Bovinder. He's the founder of the Bovinder team out of the Carolinas. So if you have that client who's been thinking about making a move to or from that area, him and his team are the folks to call. If you want to learn more about Andy, if you scroll through the library of past episodes, you can actually find a couple of his in there. Fantastic guy, super smart, has about a 50-person team. So if you ever want to learn about scaling, he's also a fantastic resource for you. If you want to hang out with Bianca, Francie, who gets mentioned in the episode, Kelly Parker, who gets mentioned, Andy, check out the link for the Inner Circle group. We are a group of some fantastic agents peppered across the US. We get together 2 times a month and we talk shop. We talk about scaling, growing our businesses, the challenges that we have, the solutions that somebody else in the group ultimately will share with you. In addition to, we share referrals. So if you want the opportunity to hang out with some top performers, follow the link in the description and add your name to the wait list. And as always, I'm your host and referral partner out of San Francisco, Sean Kunkler.
What's the number one mistake agents make when they're building a team?
Oh, wow. I think building it for the wrong reason is the number one mistake that I see agents
Mm.
making.
Say more.
Yeah, I see agents in some cases trying to build a team because they think it will be easier. They think it'll be a kind of a shortcut in a way, in a lot of cases. But unfortunately, it's actually more work, right? There's that J curve effect where before it gets easier, it gets a lot harder. And I think that sometimes is not foreseen by people that want to build a team.
That's a great point. And I think I think you're spot on. And it does. As soon as you hire anybody, it immediately like the next couple months are exponentially harder right out
Yeah.
of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, I think adding more people, as I've gotten better at hiring people, really am careful about kind of charting a course with each person that I bring on. But I will say that even with the experience I have, and I'm certainly not an expert by any means, I don't think you ever become an expert at people, but you still have that amount of work that starts at the beginning where you're adding tasks to that person's plate, you're training that person, you have expectations, you have their personality to deal with. And sometimes there's a gap between kind of what you want and what they think the job is, and how do you kind of bridge that gap before you start working seamlessly together? It takes time.
That is such a great point. And like you and I both been in the business for a while, and I think about we can look at the same thing and think completely different things about it, even though we both have an abundance of experience And so that's also a great point and observation is you hire an assistant who's amazing and you two may not be thinking about the same thing in the same way for the benefit of the client. In currently, give me just the high level so it gives more context to people listening as you start to share a little bit more. But how many people do you have on your team and what are their roles?
Sure. So there's myself, I'm the team lead. I am in sales. And then we also have three kind of support members, right? We have a virtual assistant who we've had for years. We absolutely love her, a marketing person, and my director of ops. All of them have been with me long term. And then separately, we have six agents in addition to myself. One of those agents is a salaried agent, and then the rest are more like traditional structure.
Interesting. What was your thought process with having a salaried person?
Yeah. So, what I started to recognize, especially in New York specifically, is the sales cycle is really, really long. So, it may take 3 months for a property to close. So, if someone's entering the business with not much knowledge, right, they're just kind of starting out, newly licensed, their learning curve to kind of get a client in contract and start to actually make money and be paid is sometimes 6 months out from the hire date, right? Depending on how quickly they start to learn the business and speak to clients effectively and provide good service. So that gap from 0 to like 5 to 6 months, I realized that people needed some financial support to stay with the team long term. I also recognize that a team of my size, we do over 100 transactions a year. We have a lot of work that's almost like showing assistant type work where this person can step in. It's an opportunity for them to learn the business, support the more experienced agents on the team. So they'll help with things like inspections, agent showings, all those types of tasks that are not necessarily administrative or not directly administrative tasks, but definitely in a support role where they're learning the business. And then in a few months, they're starting to work with their own clients, right? But it allows them kind of a runway to feel supported on the team. And we've found that it's really an indispensable part of our team structure. So we always have at least one salaried agent for the last number of years, and it's been very effective.
It's smart. It's like a paid internship. They're learning, but they're not stressing is
Yeah,
really what it boils
exactly.
down
And
to.
when you're stressing, you're not selling a lot either. It's not a great way to be effectively servicing your client.
Not only like that's literally scientifically proven is
Mm,
when you're in a state of, the fight or flight, when your brain is in that mode, you are anything but resourceful. The resourceful mind is the relaxed mind. And so if you're anxious and worried about money, you're watching your savings deplete week over week and you have nothing coming in, you're approaching clients with the bated breath, the sales breath, which nobody wants to
right.
have. And and then thus they're representing you in that experience. And so I think genuinely, I think that's a brilliant way to approach it and think about it because you take all that pressure off of that person. The other thing is because they're paid, you can literally tell them what to do.
Yes, I mean, yes, and I've also learned that it's a certain person
Mm,
that can be in this role, right? You need to look for that person who's internally motivated and is a hard worker, because of course we're so busy in real estate. There's so many things to do. We're going from thing to thing. I don't want to micromanage a 9 to 5 person either. So I have to offer them that little bit of flexibility that comes with working in the real estate environment.
yeah.
So it's a little bit of a marriage, but we've done it successfully. I will say as well, in addition to supporting that person, I find that it's great for the experienced agents on the team because we have
Yeah.
someone standing in for things like, making copies of keys, opening doors for things like where they don't need to be present. It frees up those more experienced agents, and it's a way for me to provide a service to them. It's just that you need to find the right person for the role. But if you do, it's golden.
Yeah. I mean, and if you have a seasoned real estate agent who's a salesperson, they're only selling when they're in front of people, not copying keys or standing in front of a printer. Like, have the non-selling person do that activity, which is also a skill they just need to acquire and learn.
Yeah. And it allows them to kind of model the other agents that they're meeting, right? So they'll be
Yeah.
in proximity a lot with agents from, other brokerages where they may be showing. So they'll kind of see how they're behaving. They're spending a lot of time with our agents as well. So It's usually people stay in this position on the team for 6 months to a year, though I have had someone for longer, but then they transition generally to more of a traditional structure, and we hire someone new. It's been a great way to grow the team. About half of our team right now came from that role.
Wow.
Yeah, so most people stay with the team long term after that.
It's a much more nurturing way to approach it versus the turn and burn.
Yeah, we're not aiming for that. Oh, wow, that's stressful on everybody.
Super stressful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stressful if you're a good performing agent and there's like your teammates are in and out, it that creates an anxiety for you, for
Mhm.
the producer. Um,
It really disrupts the culture, right, to have people coming and going as well, because
yeah.
you don't wanna walk in on a Monday and you have this team, and on Tuesday you have a different group of people to get to know. That's not good for anybody.
Yeah, and if you have 10 people, that's a very evolved culture. It's very evolved.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the things we're most proud of is just
Yeah.
how, there's the newest person on the team has been on the team for almost a year at this point. So there's not a lot of turnover. There are people who have been on the team 7 years. So like we just don't see
Amazing.
a lot of turnover on our particular team. Now, every team is, as you know, there's infinite models and structures, right?
Yeah.
We're not looking for turnover, obviously, but we are a sales team, so we do need to aim for production, but we're not looking for that turnover. We want a win-win, so people want to stay long term.
I'd be willing to bet the hardest part of your day isn't the work. It's the mental load. It's the decision fatigue. It's the shuffling of priorities while you're already playing catch up. You're checking off things from your to do list just as fast as they're getting added. And I'd also be willing to bet some of those meaningful business relationships you've had in the past have begun to fade. Ace Your Day is a physical deck of 52 strategic cards designed to halt fatigue. Refined by real world results, this system replaces chaos of a to do list with a curated set of high impact actions. It's simple: set a timer for 15 minutes, draw a card, and make your move. The deck handles the thinking, you drive the business. Building a secure business should not be a guessing game. Let's stop overthinking the day and trust a system that prioritizes connections and relationships. Let the deck handle the strategy. You focus on the results. Click the link in the description to reclaim your day 15 minutes at a time.
What did you do prior to real estate? Out of
Oh,
curiosity.
wow. So, I mean, I've been doing this for quite a while, and I came from a science background. So I came to this work as from field
Interesting.
biology, so a little bit different.
That's fascinating.
Yes,
Wait,
it is.
so all right, now I'm like super curious. How did you go from field biology to real estate?
Well, most people probably don't know that when you're working in field biology, basically these projects are seasonal in most cases. So I was working
Mm,
in Yellowstone, for example, in Hawaii's national park, and a bunch of really cool places.
wow.
But when I was working for graduate students, essentially helping with their research projects, that
Yeah.
work would take place in usually the summer months or around the summer months. So I may leave in the spring and then return in the fall back to New York. And I needed something that I could do. And I'm like everybody else, real estate's so flexible. I'm gonna jump into this and I'll be able to come and go. And I always find that funny because when people say that to me, I'm like, okay. But anyway, so I had that same notion, same thought. I'm like, I'll just, I'll do this or wait tables or
Yeah.
something. And I got my license and I'm like, I'm going to rent apartments. And, one thing led to another in life. It turned out I had a knack for this. I don't
Yeah.
know how or why, but it really fit with like my need for change and my need for variety in a way
Yeah.
that, and service. Like I just loved it. So
That's
I
fascinating.
and that was it, and and I never really came from a business background because I only really had that science work in my,
Yeah.
so I kind of I didn't have a lot of, I think some of it baggage and maybe some of it experience I could have brought into this, but
And I know nothing about science.
Mhm.
And so when you're doing that, do you typically work on with a lot of teams?
Well, we're working mostly in a small team, so it is that structure. So usually it's a researcher and a graduate student, and then a few people that were in my role, more of a support role that were working with that staff.
Interesting.
So it was set up that way as well,
Yeah.
where you'd be, but it wasn't the hierarchy of a company
Yeah.
necessarily. We were collaborating together, but a little bit of a
Huh.
different model.
But it seems like, well, at least the collaboration and in working with a group.
Yeah.
That is absolutely fascinating and 100% not what I had. I don't know what I expected, but that was an edge, which is cool and also fascinating to me because I think it further solidifies the point that I made on this show before is you can literally come from any background in this industry and crush it. You can do phenomenally well.
Yeah. I don't think you need any specific prerequisites for this work either.
No.
And I love that. I love that because, like we're in Queens, which is extremely, extremely diverse. Queens, New York is one of the most diverse places in the country. And between the people on the team who speak so many different languages, the people that we work with who speak so many different languages, so many different backgrounds,
Yeah.
education levels, I just love that. I love that about our work.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really cool and interesting. It's kinda it parlays back to the when you're building a team and the culture. When you add on a client, that changes the culture, the dynamic of that transaction. Then you add in an attorney or an escrow officer, an inspector, and it's like this ever evolving thing that you're helping guide this client towards. And, I think that's always for me, that's always been the fascinating, like, that the human psychology component
Mm.
of it has always been the fascinating part, and why people do what they do, and how they think about things, and how they're approaching them. That's the part that's always kept me very engaged with this work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right, it's like project management on a very high level, right? Like you're all working toward a goal.
Yeah.
And then, sometimes I think about that and I also think like how important it is to remind everybody that we're working toward a goal because you do get sometimes a little bit of a difficult client perhaps or a difficult agent on the other side, whatever. It's a stressful moment for
Yeah.
people. So I always got to give people the benefit of the doubt, but just that reminder to say we're all working together on this to achieve this, to me, I feel like that brings everybody back together, and I love to kinda stress that.
It's funny, sometimes we need to it's that recalibration. I
Totally.
worked with a client, it was one of my first clients, who was an FBI agent, and
Oh,
so he was
wow.
like he was super super cool guy, but he had, like, an edge. And, we were in a negotiation, he was buying a property, and it was, like, over a couple $1,000 on a very expensive property, so it was, like it wasn't about the money, it was about the principle, and I remember I had to, like, "Hey, man, can we talk?" And, like, I had to pull him aside and be like, "I get it, you totally wanna win the battle, but what's more important, the battle or the war? Do you really want to do you see yourself moving into this home in the future, or do you just out of principle wanna dig your heels in on this?"
Mm.
And he was literally was like, "You're right. Let's just proceed." And sometimes you just have to, like,
Name it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
just I think sometimes just have the confidence to call attention to it,
Yeah.
slow people down. And on the other side, be like, "Hey, this isn't brain surgery. Nobody is gonna die on the table. Let's all just, like, take a beat. How about we
Mhm.
all just pause this for an hour and then think about it, and then we'll reconvene and kinda see where everybody's at." And I think sometimes we all just need to, like, stop the chaos and the noise and make a deal happen.
Yeah, no, I think that is so important, and I do kind of I think we're in that situation a lot where we can see it, like, we can see it from above because 'cause we've been in it before, and we're
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, you're stuck on something you love this house." It, always this happens around inspection reports and things, like, you love this property and we had this recently where someone was focused on it was like a screen door, like, literally a screen door, like, I was just like, "Guys, I'm like, "You love this house, like, they're like, "That's not a big deal, why can't the seller just fix it?" The buyer's like, "Well, it's not a big deal," and the seller's like, "Well, it's not a big deal, why can't the buyer just take it?" It's like, you get into that thing, and it's like, "Guys, it doesn't make a difference. It does not matter."
It
You know? So, having the relationship with the client to be able to say that, that's the other thing, not you know,
yes.
if the client feels you have their best interests at heart, I think you can have that conversation, but, you need to build that, you need to have that stable base.
I 1000% agree. If you really spend the time up front to really understand what it is your client wants and needs and desires and what their fears are, and you really spend the time to build the rapport, you can have those more candid, honest conversations later in the more stressful points of the transaction.
Mhm.
Um, it's funny. I always love reminding my clients is before we sit down and look at the inspection report, I just want you to know or to remember that an inspector's job is not to say anything nice. They're not going to say, I love this room. I love the natural light. The electrical looks amazing. These floors are beautiful. They're not. They're only going to say bad stuff. It
Yep.
doesn't mean it's falling down.
They're being paid to find problems.
Exactly. And
Like,
if
how
they
sad
don't,
would you be if you paid someone $1,000 and they didn't come up with anything?
exactly. Like you want to know these things.
Mm.
Uh, we were talking briefly before we started recording, you've recently gone through the experience of the purchase and you're being reminded of these things in real time, which we were talking about how genuinely important that is for us to do our jobs better.
Yeah. I do. I think when you've done a lot of transactions over a long period of time, on some level, you can get a little bit detached from the emotion that the
Yes.
clients feel. You're not detached from the process, and you can become really, like, almost like, you know, you can become almost like a machine in the way you kind of carefully navigate each situation. But the
Yeah.
emotion, what the client actually feels when they're waiting for the mortgage commitment, or the appraisal comes in low, or there's a challenge with the transaction. That emotion, or like when you're a buyer on the other side and there's multiple offers and you're being asked to go maybe over asking, and there's that whole kind of roller coaster you get on. I love the opportunity to be attached to those feelings. Like, whenever I've bought properties, and as I was mentioning briefly, I'm in the process of buying one now. I feel like that brings it to life for me again. Even though we do a
Yeah.
ton of deals, but I love to kind of like, oh, I am waiting to sign the contract. I'm so excited when we sign it. And then we go through the mortgage process, and how does that work?
Yeah.
That connection with what the client feels, to me, is just a reminder, like, how can we elevate that part of what we do, that kind of empathic part of what we do, which is so important.
Hey, friends, I have a small favor to ask. For me to continue to bring you outstanding guests who share their best kept secrets for growing a successful real estate business, please take a moment and hit that like button so agents like you can find this content. And also hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Now, back to our show.
We continue to move faster and faster, I feel, the more deals that we do, and we lose the connection to the client to actually empathize with them. We're like, "Oh, that's not a big deal." To them, it's a huge deal. To
Yeah,
us, it's not a big deal. We've seen it 1,000 times. They've seen it 0 times. And so reminding and remembering, like, slow it way down and,
right.
like, "You must be freaking out. This seems, X, Y, and Z. Let me break it down for you." And then, like, really slowing it down for them. And I think to your point, without going through that, you lose that. I was recently looking at a property in Connecticut, and funny enough, I had this amazing agent who I was introduced from Francie, and then Francie was over the line but doesn't know the market, and so she's like, "I'll go look at the property too," and I was like, "This is amazing." Now I have, like, 2 badass agents looking at a property, and I remember me as an agent thinking, "This is great." Like, I have 2 savvy people looking at it, giving me their opinion on a place that I'm not directly seeing, but they're seeing it for me, and I and now I'm like reviewing it in my head. I appreciated how candid those conversations were.
Mhm.
And like, hey, this is going to be a concern. This is something you need to look at or consider or have inspected. And like, no, this is actually, I'm looking at it now. This is fine. You can just blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, it's interesting having
Well,
the right people.
this is why AI is not gonna replace agents.
Correct.
Because the reality is that human touch is
Yes.
so, so important
Yes.
because it really does it's way more than numbers and statistics and comparable sales and all of that stuff. It's just so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
Now, I do think that it's oversimplified. People looking inside of our industry from another industry like AI and saying like, "Oh yeah, well, we can make it work." You don't you have to know this like intimately to understand why that isn't going to happen,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
I'm of the same opinion. AI is definitely going to change the landscape. It can't not at this point. But I will tell you that I'm an expert in this field. And I was looking at a property and there was this is true. The seller was posturing at it was selling it as an as is. I know the definition of as is. They were not using the correct definition. And so I'm using AI to understand what my legal rights are versus what they think they are. And I'm talking to Francie and Will to understand the actual property. Like, hey, this is what I want to do with it. What do you see as the expert? And them talking to me through that on an emotional level
Mhm.
of they're flexing this as is, they're not disclosing certain line items. What are your thoughts? That's a red flag. And now
Mhm.
I'm having a human conversation. And to your point, that human conversation, that's the paramount piece because this is a large amount of money we're talking about and thus a large amount of risk. And we already know moving is on the top 3 most stressful things a human can do. And having a human support you is incredibly important. I do not wanna go to a computer kiosk to find out if I do have brain cancer or don't. I want a human to look me in the eye and have that conversation, and I think it's very parallel with this industry.
It really is. I mean, it will certainly be a tool, so there's no way it won't be a tool, but in the right hands, it's going to enhance the human experience, in my
Correct.
opinion. And when it comes to things like medical decisions, sure, they're going to use AI to scan those scans, but they're going to deliver the information in a certain way. I I'm I'm excited for the change that's happening in the industry, and I think that we really want to try to embrace it. And some people are more willing to do so than others, but I'm very optimistic right now about it.
I I'm on the same page. It's if you look at the business in, let's say, the '90s, you had to print things out, you had to go and meet your clients, and then, fax machines came along, and you're like, "Oh, I don't have to actually drive, it's more convenient." Then computers stepped up, and then eventually phones, and so now we can go tour a property, sit in our car, write a contract, email it to our agents, and so we're able to compress time with technology, and so I think the AI is gonna compress time, but again, I wanna be able to look a human in the eye and say, "I know what all these reports say. Am I crazy for thinking this?
Sure.
Or is this really gonna be the best location for my family?" And, like, more of, like, the intimate level of my human experience of living in this home. I just don't think the technology is gonna be able I think it could potentially deliver some of it, but I think we're gonna crave the human connection for the guidance. And I've used this as an example before. If you get a speeding ticket, you can use an online attorney to get you out of it. But if you're on trial for you're wrongfully if you accused of murder, you want a human being like, "It's okay. Let's take a beat. I got your back. Here's how we're gonna proceed."
Right.
Like, you are absolutely gonna want that, and not just the kiosk of, "Push 2 now."
Seriously. Yeah, so as the stakes get higher, we need people. That's
Exactly.
the that's that's the big takeaway for me.
It absolutely is, and I love, to kind of round it back to your team, I really appreciate the your nurturing aspect to your team, which I'm sure relates back to your clients and ultimately their experience. Because, again, I think that a happy team who's really well cultivated, they just show up differently.
Yeah. I mean, I think happy people show up differently in everything that we do, and I think it's our job to as team leaders, I think it's our job to build an environment where people feel supported. Our business is so complicated. It is
And
wildly complicated. And, the fact that there's such a steep learning curve over a period of years. I'm still learning new things, right? I mean, after, 2 decades in this business, I still see things that I'm like, wow, that's interesting. I love how that was navigated. I love to see that change. But to
yeah,
kind of teach someone that, that's over a long period of time, and I think if we're in a team environment, like, we can support each other. It's not just me, it's also the team that we build. Christina, our director of ops, she's a huge part of that. She also
yeah,
supports the agents. So we have an environment where people love to come to work and they're learning new things, and I think that's the exciting part of what we do. It does translate for me into how we treat our clients.
mhm, which is that is the
That's what it
bottom.
comes down to. Exactly.
Everything boils down to that because
Yeah.
without that, there's no transactions, there's no referrals, there's no everything else dries up.
Yeah.
If you were to rebuild a team from scratch today, you move to a new location,
Mhm.
this team's up and running, what would you do as like a day one? Would you do anything differently?
Well, I mean, look, when
Would you do it?
I'm like, "Whoa, that was a" I mean, I love truly love what I do, and I look forward to coming to work, so I think that right there, to me, it's like, this is a job, but it's more than that. It's part of my identity now. I love it.
I
So,
like that.
would I do it somewhere else? I mean, I don't know that I would do it somewhere else, but if I had to do it over, I would start with a strong support staff to begin with, a strong administrative staff. I mean, that is a mistake that I think when you asked about building a team and how people kind of can go sideways with building a team. One of the things I think people do is the first thing you want to do is add an agent, right? They want to add an agent because they think that's going to be revenue positive for them. But
Yeah,
a good agent is not going to stay with us unless we provide support and we provide something to them. It has to be a win-win, right? And
yeah,
without a strong administrative base to take some of that administrative work off of that salesperson's plate, we can't free up their time to go out and sell things. We can't free up our own time to go out and sell things.
it's true.
So it's got to be the first thing people look to, in my opinion. But, sometimes people recognize, as they should, that it's expensive and they may not have the business support that administrative person.
Yeah,
That's where I think you need to question, is it the right time to build a business? Because you need to have enough, and you have to have enough coming in order to support that structure. And like, it's like, it's like
that's
anything
true.
else. You build a building, you got to start at the foundation, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you end up wasting a lot of energy and time trying to build a team where there's not enough business to kind of support it.
yeah. If I hear you correctly, it would almost the advisement would almost be start with a self-discovery and
Mm.
figure out if is it the right time? Is this like, do you wanna be a leader? Do you wanna take on this?
I mean, first of all, I love that framing because I haven't really thought of it that way. But yeah, I do think that's important. I think because having a team has become, for some people, a bit of prestige. Well, I have a
Yeah,
team. It's kind of like you've graduated to the next level. Not everyone is in a position where they should necessarily have a team. And
agreed.
I'm not meaning that that's an elite, like some people aren't capable of it. They may be capable of it, but I do think it's important to, like, is it the right time? Is the
Yeah.
more thing to think about.
It's one of the things that actually really annoys me about this industry is there's so much pressure,
Mhm.
unspoken pressure about, "Well, if you hit these certain metrics, then you should have a team. You should have an assistant. You should bring a buyer's agent on." And then it implies that you're going to be a good manager or a good leader, and it's not. And it's also implying that that's what you would enjoy doing. Like, maybe you don't. Like, I know tons of agents who crush it. They're alone, they're solo, and they're happy as clams.
Yeah.
And I would hope that collectively we can free people up. Some people are amazing at running teams. Some people are better on teams. Some people are better as support. And there's no wrong answer. It's whatever is resonating with your soul. If when you get up in the morning, are you excited to go do that thing? And I think that's really the first my 2 cents is I feel like that's the first place people should really genuinely start, and I don't think they do. They try to, especially when they're younger, newer to the business, they're getting a little hit of success, and then it's like, "Well, everybody's got a team around me," and then just start throwing spaghetti at the wall, and you just watch their business either plateau or dry up because of it, because they're now distracted from the thing they were actually good at.
Well, you only have a certain amount of bandwidth, right? I mean, you can't just spend time doing things, you know, that are not effectively going to move the needle just to have done them, right? And I do think, part of it is the metrics in our industry, right? It's like we look at sales volume
Yeah,
so much, but we don't really take into consideration the specifics of the market that person's working in,
yeah,
what the price point is of the houses, or also like what their profitability looks like. And we've seen that as a real challenge for people. There's so many people that have spoken about this, but profitability is important, right? Because to your
yeah,
point, if people need to be happy, and for people to be happy, they need to support themselves, right? So if your profitability is a problem, you're not paying your taxes, you have a ton of debt, you're not going to be in a good situation.
yeah.
There's a lot of lead sources that are costing people so much money, and I don't think that they're taking the time to really drill down and look, but they're like, "Well, our volume is so high." Great, your volume is so high, but what are you taking home? What is your team taking home at the end of the day, right? Like, that's important.
It it's funny, I had a conversation with, Kathleen, who's a coach, business coach, and we were talking about the different models of profitability, which nobody looks at. They just look at different models to build a team,
Yeah.
not different models of profitability. And when you then start looking at profitability, most small, like the micro teams of 1 support, 2 or 3 agents, you'd probably be more profitable if you just ran solo without
Yes.
anything else. And then so then the question is, are you a good leader manager to take it to the level to get it to be where it's actually producing the income that you want it to? Or should you actually just scale it down and kind of live in that sweet spot? These are all great questions. And again, I think it goes to the self-discovery. I think people just as your business is evolving and morphing to evaluate and think these things through and not just do it because there's that weird social pressure. Um, even and this is subtle. We on our team stopped using units and homes or volume and all of that. We started saying clients helped
Mm.
and just subtly changing the vocabulary of it's not about the volume and these the metrics that Real Trends cares about. It's actually about the humans, and are they having a good experience? Are they either moving into the home they of their dreams, or are they selling for the profit they actually want?
Yeah.
And so I think this whole conversation is just a great reminder to recalibrate from time to time.
Well, I love that. I mean, we have really stopped really looking at our numbers, and I don't keep close tabs on things like volume. We look at, units and kind of see like where things are landing in the year, but we're not really worried so much about
Yeah.
what our volume is or even that we're the number one in any specific segment of our market. I think about the people, the experience, right? The clients at the top of that pyramid, but I also think about the
Yeah.
agents on the team, right? Their experience,
Yeah.
the administrative staff on the team, their experience. Are they happy to come to work? Are they fulfilled? You're being remunerated in a way that makes sense for them? This is what I think about. And I think, when you put good out in the world, good comes back. And I personally believe that if we have that as kind of our goal, that everybody's, doing well and paid well and people are happy to be at work, we're winning, our clients are winning, our team is
Yeah.
winning. And it's so much more important than our ranking in real trend. Like, I mean, it's exciting. It always feels good, those little wins, but it's not sustaining us. It's not what makes this
Yeah.
worth it every day.
Yeah. It's funny, some of my favorite agents in the US, I'll ask them like, "Hey, what are your numbers?" And they're like, I don't know. I don't care."
Like literally.
Like, Kelly Parker immediately comes to mind. She's always like, I don't know. I don't like it, 0, and she crushes it. Her and her team are like knocking it out of the park left and right. And she's always like, I have no idea what my numbers are.
Well, you have to add, like, I think in that it's like what we focus on becomes like, the most important thing and it grows, right? If we're just focused on numbers and transactions, we start to really just be in that space. We're not really thinking about the people, the experience.
So I'm curious, you have tangibles and non-tangibles in a business. The tangibles would be the things that you can measure, the quantifiable numbers, the either the sales volume or the number of meetings you have, those things. And then you have the non-tangibles is the culture, and are people happy? Does Are they excited to come to work? Does it feel good? I'm curious in both categories, what are you measuring then? And then of the things that you can't actually measure, how are you evaluating those?
Sure. I mean, I think the hardest thing to measure is culture, right? There's no way to
By
really
far.
measure that, and you can't put a number on that, right? It's just, I think for me when I look at that, it's transparency with the people that I work with to try to get a gauge of
Mm,
how they're feeling and having open conversations with people about kind of what they're looking for and what they want. And are we reaching those targets in terms of making it work for them, right? We don't have a lot of turnover on the team, and I think it's important that I always think that I have to earn the opportunity to work with these people every day because they're great salespeople and they're
mm,
great people. And I think like they could find another team leader to work for, right? They could go somewhere else. There's no shortage of they could go out on their own potentially. But like I have to really earn that relationship. And I think of it almost like a marriage in the sense that I'm always trying to, hopefully we all are trying to pour into our marriage, right? And pour into the relationship with our kids. I think of it like that with the people on my team. Like when they call me, I call them right back. When they text
yeah,
me, I text them right back. And it's not because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get so much out of this. It's like, I want to help them feel calm and
yeah,
supported in what they're doing. And they do that for me too. I mean, I bounce questions off them all the time,
yeah.
like it's a two-way street.
You reminded me of a Tony Robbins quote, where the quote is, "A relationship isn't a place to go and get something, it's a place
Mm,
to go and give something."
I've
And
never heard that, but I love it.
that's what you just embodied, is you show up for them and thus they show up for you, but you're not showing up for them because they're giving to you. And I love it. I love the way that you framed it and the way that you said that, and I feel that's such an important way to look at all relationships, not just the team, but your clients, your partner, your kids. Just pour into them,
Well,
and
that's what makes it worthwhile.
it
That's the thing.
does.
That's what makes it worthwhile. And when real estate is reduced to transactions, like it's great, sure, we're cashing checks, but it feels less meaningful, Like that's the
Yep.
thing. It feels less meaningful. And I think when we assign meaning to it and we enjoy
Yeah.
it, that's when it becomes fun,
Yeah.
and that's when we're building something. That's what's
You
exciting.
It's funny, you know how I know that's true? When the interest rate dropped to, like, 2.5 and we were all frazzled, we were all
Yeah.
burnt out. Why were we burnt out? Because we were all just chasing money at that point.
Just
Like,
turning deals,
collectively
literally turning
across,
deals. Yes.
like, talk to any agent who was working at that time there, everybody was like, "Holy crap, I was so burnt out." Like, I didn't know whether I was coming or going or what was happening, and because we all just flipped the switch of to it was a transaction, and we were just, like, taking orders at
It
that
was
point.
such a hard time too for all of us too, coming out of
Ah,
like the shock of COVID and the trauma. And I feel like collectively real estate agents in general, we were on the forefront of this urge for people to move and change, and they,
Yeah.
like, needed us, and it was v they were not people in general were not in a good emotional place, and some people will say they're still not, everything's so crazy, but that that we took that on, and I remember that time being very, very hard on agents in general, but to your point, I agree, we were also running with our hair on fire trying to service all these people that needed us
Yeah.
emotionally and in every other way, and it was tough, it was a tough
W
time.
which left us all in a
Very, very drained, very
it
depleted.
yeah, a
Yeah.
huge deficit
Oh my gosh.
collectively,
Yeah.
which it's funny, I don't know if we're 100% back.
No, we're not. I don't think actually to me, I don't even think the larger society personally, I don't think the larger society is, but in the
No,
world of real estate, no, it's been a hard road since COVID. I mean,
it
the
has.
changes in our industry, which is more recent, obviously just the lawsuits, the mergers, all the disruption that's happening in the industry itself, and then the interest rate fluctuations, which have been wild and unprecedented, and the COVID restrictions and, people's emotional state, which people think we're part therapists, and I tend
Yeah,
to agree in some cases. So I'll
I think we are.
so all of that, and then also like trying to earn a living and take care of ourselves. It's been a tough one.
Yeah, and so to give you some stats, and I could be misquoting it because I'm running off memory, but during that peak, there was about 2.4 million agents in the US. We're now currently at about 1.9.
Wow.
So we've had a significant drop off, meaning people left the business. That's a pretty gnarly experience. And then within that, currently in the past year, it was something crazy like 70% of agents did 0 transactions.
Yes, I've heard that, and I always can't believe that those
It's
numbers when I see
staggering.
it. Yeah.
And so, to kind of circle back, I think we're still in this recovery phase post-COVID of trying to figure it out. And the business got compounded because of the decoupling. And so now it made it exponentially harder. But I also think there's a good byproduct to that. And your team, and especially the salaried person, the example, I would say, is I feel that if you're of those agents who did 0 transactions, that means you're gonna have to attach with the people who are veterans, who know they really understand the business, they do good work, and thus you're gonna have to attach yourself to them to learn, which is
Mhm.
great. You're gonna take on an apprenticeship, and at the end of it, you're gonna be more qualified than you were before, and so I think for the greater good of the industry, I think it's a positive thing.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I think there's gonna be a continued kind of shedding of people from the industry. Not that we necessarily, not that I would want that for the industry, but I do think that there's so much evolution and change happening. And the reality is evolution and change is hard for anybody and
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
And some people are just not going to be willing to or able to adopt the change the way it needs to happen. And in
Yeah.
some cases, I think clients will be better off for it. But I
Agreed.
just think we have to be a little bit careful you know, about kind of how we think about that, right? Because we don't want, I mean, I personally think that even agents that, are not doing, zero age, you're doing zero transactions, that's one thing. But agents doing a mid number of transactions, I think that's good for a healthy market. I think that having variety
Agreed.
is good. I think there's some markets where it's like extremely, market share is just very concentrated, and I
Yeah.
think that can be a challenge. So I do like the ideas and the diversity in our industry. So I don't think we
Yeah.
want to lose that. But yeah, it's definitely, I think it's continuing to evolve, and I think there'll be more changes. And now, the macro things that are happening in our industry, that's another point. It's like sometimes I wish agents understood a little bit more about the bigger stuff that's happening in the industry, where I
Yeah.
think when you are deal to deal and you're in the transaction mindset, or maybe you don't have the length of time in the business or you're not really thinking about it that way,
Mm.
you can miss a lot of the big stuff that's happening and why it's happening. So
Agreed.
I think it's important for us to know that stuff and be able to talk about it fluidly with our clients and forums like this.
I think there's some big stuff
Huge.
changing.
Yeah.
And to go back, I actually like the word that you used, shedding. I think it is a shedding, and I don't, I have an Australian cattle dog who's shedding right now. It's like I have a lot of, like, now mini piles of dogs all over my floor. It's great. But she's not going bald, right?
Right.
It's for new growth. It's
Yeah.
for new, and I don't necessarily purely look at it as a negative that some of these agents are leaving, because I think it, again, at the end of the day, it's not for everybody, and that's okay. And I
Yeah.
and I and I feel people just need the permission of, like, "Hey, you didn't fail at this. It just wasn't your jam. Go find your jam." It's like there's something else out there. Similar to you, you came from a science background. It's radically different. You didn't fail at it. You just found something that clicked with you and
Yeah.
resonated, and you have had an amazing 2-decade run from doing a change. And so it's not a failure per se. It's just it didn't work, and it's an outcome. And life is
Yeah.
about outcomes.
Well, also, we're coming off, like we talked about, a period where interest rates were so low and everybody's like, "Oh my God, there's so much money in real estate." And then, you kind of you have all these people like went and got their license. They're like, "Oh, I'm gonna be on $1 million listing." And it's like
Yeah.
this whole thing, like that needs to be shed, in my opinion. Like, please, not that I'm against like entertainment, but we just have to see it for entertainment. That's the thing. We have to see it as entertainment and not as really what's happening in the business, because I think it, of course, as so many people have said, it really, it doesn't treat the industry with with the seriousness it deserves, let's face it, in a lot of
Yeah.
cases.
Yeah, it's definitely Hollywoodified,
Yes.
the whole experience. And yeah, I mean, I think it's also kind of funny. I work out of San Francisco, which, from a market saturation, it's a 7 by 7 mile city, and there's
Mm.
6,000 agents all fighting, clamoring, and trying to make a name for themselves. And I'm sitting on a podcast with a jean jacket, looking like like, I'm the total opposite
Mm.
of the $1 million real estate agent. Though I know I have a nice suits when I
Yeah,
show up
you
for
can, I'm sure you
clients.
can get dressed up if you need to.
When I record, I wanna be comfortable. I wanna wear my denim. Um, Bianca, this was really fun, and I genuinely enjoyed the twists and turns of this conversation, and the reminders as well.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been so much fun. What a pleasure.
Thank you. And that, my friend, that's a wrap.